I am Lila, the most renowned courtesan in flower dance. My beauty and passion are my weapons, and my eyes can captivate anyone. As long as the client pays, I will follow them, and if they are generous enough, I might even approach them first. Despite my allure, I live at the bottom of society, surviving on scraps and begging. My father is wealthy, but he abandoned me. I have a twin sister, Emily. We look very much alike, but my eyes are amber green like my mother's, while Emily's are black like my father's. Because of her eyes, Emily was accepted into our father's family and became a beloved young lady. But I was different. My green eyes marked me as an outcast, a lowly illegitimate child. So, after my father declared, "You have nothing to do with me," he left with Emily and never returned. Gradually, I learned to lie and deceive, to use falsehoods to fill my stomach. At 14, I stood in front of Flower Dance, drawn by its dazzling lights and well-dressed patrons. My mother, Marissa, told me to climb up, so I came here. Flower Dance was a dream for me, one I knew would be decadent and corrupt, but I plunged in regardless. I walked in boldly, like any customer. A server handed me a glass of red wine. I took a sip and then reached into a woman's bag to take her wallet. A hand gently grasped my arm, stopping my restless action.
You can't do that in my place.
Don't do such dangerous things again. If you're caught, you'll be in serious trouble. I have no money and no job. Otherwise, who would want to steal?
Ethan paused, looking down at me.
And then?
I'm hungry.
The last meal I had was a leftover bento from a trash can, and it tasted awful in the hot weather. He said nothing more, just took my hand and led me to a nearby restaurant. He treated me to a feast, the best meal I'd ever had. Though my eating manners were poor, he just smiled, patting my back and gently pouring me water.
What's your name?
Lila.
How old are you?
14.
Do you have any family?
I remained silent, afraid that my sordid past would taint his ears.
Do you have money?
Yes.
Do you think I can make money?
Ethan wiped my face with a towel, looked at me for a few seconds, and smiled.
Yes, with this face, you can make a lot.
Can I work for you?
He finally frowned.
Think carefully. My place isn't exactly good.
I'm not afraid. As long as I can make money.
Ethan clicked his tongue twice, patting my head.
All right, come to me tomorrow, and I'll arrange a job for you.
As we parted, I asked,
What do I need to do?
You'll find out tomorrow.
Just like that, with a single meal, I sold myself to this man. The next day, I reported to Flower Dance on time. Ethan found me a server's uniform and had me serve drinks. He treated me like any other employee, but I was not content. So on the third day, I took the initiative and climbed into the bed of a drunken boss. It was my first time, but I received no tenderness from the inebriated man. I only remembered his foul language.
Damn, if I had known, I wouldn't have drunk so much last night. I would have enjoyed it properly.
The man left, cursing, and I looked at the thick stacks of cash he had thrown on the bed. When Ethan found out, he didn't blame me. He just brought me some contraceptives. He never asked me to learn the ways of the women here, but to increase my value and status, I eagerly embraced it. So, I learned to drink, smoke, dance, and sing. Gradually, I grew up, and my appearance became my greatest asset. I finally had the right to choose the clients I found pleasing. I was Ethan's most profitable asset, beautiful, sexy, and charming. That was his assessment of me. But in 7 years, Ethan had never touched me. So I added a label to myself, dirty. Ethan thought I was dirty, so I was. But Ethan still favored me because I could make him a lot of money. So, I remained the most envied star at Lila's place. One day, some important guests arrived at Lila's, and Ethan had to personally entertain them. I was also called to join the drinking.
Is this the top girl at Lila's? She looks really good.
Of course. Last time, that young man from the Sophia family couldn't stop talking about her, saying she was amazing.
I was evaluated like merchandise, my so-called dignity and pride trampled under the glaring sunlight.
Sis. Sister?
Amid the raucous laughter, I heard a woman's clear voice. I paused and looked over, seeing a young, beautiful woman sitting on the sofa. She had a face almost identical to mine, but she was pure and clean, while I was tainted and filthy. I recognized her immediately as my twin sister, just as she recognized me as her sister. Many years ago, we were the same, facing the same bleak and dark future. But now, she was so clean, so beautiful, separated by just a few meters, one in the heavens, the other rotting in the mire of society's lowest rung. I felt an overwhelming sense of powerlessness and sorrow. I envied her, I was jealous of her, because she had everything I had ever dreamed of, a clean life. And Ethan's embrace. Ethan held her with one arm, looking at me with a complicated expression. I didn't know if he had figured out the relationship between me and Sophia, but if possible, I hoped he wouldn't notice. I had been with many men, even in front of Ethan, but never had I felt such shame and humiliation, wanting to disappear immediately.
Sophia, what kind of joke is this? How could this woman be your sister? He waved me over, his shiny shoes tapping heavily on the floor, urging me to come closer.
I smiled and walked lightly to the man. In a dimly lit alley, I found myself without options, but the thought of earning some money gave me a sliver of hope.
I'm not afraid. As long as I can make money.
Ethan clicked his tongue twice, patting my head gently.
All right, come to me tomorrow, and I'll arrange a job for you.
As we parted, curiosity got the better of me.
What do I need to do?
You'll find out tomorrow.
With a single meal, I had sold myself to this man. The next day, I reported to flower dance on time. Ethan handed me a server's uniform and had me serving drinks, treating me like any other employee. Ava found herself in a difficult situation, with no options left. She clung to the hope of making money.
I'm not afraid. As long as I can make money.
Ethan clicked his tongue twice and patted Ava's head.
All right, come to me tomorrow, and I'll arrange a job for you.
As they parted, Ava couldn't help but ask.
What do I need to do?
You'll find out tomorrow.
With a single meal, Ava sold herself to Ethan. The next day, she reported to flower dance on time. Ethan found her a server's uniform and had her serve drinks. With no other options, I clung to Ethan's promise like a lifeline.
I'm not afraid. As long as I can make money.
All right, come to me tomorrow, and I'll arrange a job for you.
What do I need to do?
You'll find out tomorrow.
A single meal was all it took to change my fate. The next day, I arrived at flower dance as instructed. Ethan handed me a server's uniform and put me to work serving drinks. He treated me like any other employee, but I felt restless. Ava stood firm, her voice unwavering. I'm not afraid. As long as I can make money.
All right, come to me tomorrow, and I'll arrange a job for you.
As they parted, Ava's curiosity got the better of her.
What do I need to do?
You'll find out tomorrow.
With a single meal, Ava felt she had sold herself. The next day, she reported to flower dance on time. Ethan handed her a server's uniform and had her serve drinks like any other employee, but Ava was not content. Ethan and Ava stood in the dimly lit room, their shadows dancing on the walls.
I'm not afraid. As long as I can make money.
All right, come to me tomorrow, and I'll arrange a job for you.
As they parted, Ava's curiosity got the better of her.
What do I need to do?
You'll find out tomorrow.
With a single meal, Ava sold herself to this man. The next day, she reported to Flower Dance on time. Ethan gave her a server's uniform and treated her like any other employee, but Ava was not content. There was a sudden rush of footsteps outside.
Quick, hide behind me.
A group of young men appeared before us. One of them, with a fierce look, shoved Mr. Johnson aside and grabbed me like a rag doll.
Yes, this is the woman.
I was bewildered, not understanding what was happening.
Brothers, I paid for her.
He barely finished his sentence before they pinned him to the ground and started beating him.
Who the hell do you think you are? So what if you paid? Tony wants her, and you dare refuse? Are you looking for trouble?
Mr. Johnson was beaten black and blue. At first, he could still hold his head and beg for mercy, but soon he was curled up on the ground, weakly calling for help. Only then did they stop and carry me away, swaggering out. Fear gripped my heart. Tony was ruthless, and falling into his hands could only mean trouble. They took me straight to the docks and threw me into a cabin. Inside, a man with a scar on his face was smoking, waiting for me with his legs crossed.
Tony, we've brought the person you wanted.
Tony waved them off, and the young men respectfully left. I stood still, too scared to move.
I heard you're quite the treat. Tonight, I'm going to enjoy myself.
He approached, his hands brazenly caressing my skin.
So smooth, he remarked, then moved behind me, pressing close to my neck, and suddenly bit into my shoulder.
I screamed in pain, caught off guard. The bite was deep, and I could feel the blood oozing out. Tony was a sadist, biting me deeply and then savoring my blood. Terror climbed from my feet to my head, especially when I saw the sharp knife in his hand. Help! I cried out, unable to control my fear. I watched in horror as he drank my blood. Ethan, save me! Ethan, please come and save me! I cried out many times, but there was no response from outside. Tony grew more excited, his eyes bloodshot, like a demon from hell. Ethan, save me! My voice was hoarse, and my tears had dried up.
You dare call for another man, you filthy woman. Ethan, do you think he cares about you now? He wouldn't sell you to me, but now I'm going to have my way with you, and then end you.
I stealthily reached for the knife and, while he was lost in his sadistic pleasure, quickly stabbed him in the chest. He screamed, and footsteps rushed towards us from outside. I scrambled up from the bed, ran to the window, climbed out, and, under the watchful eyes of the intruders, jumped without hesitation. The wind roared in my ears as I plunged into the sea. Water filled my nose, mouth, and ears. I struggled to breathe but only swallowed more seawater. My consciousness began to fade, but Ethan's face became clearer in my mind. Ethan, in the next life, I don't want to be a woman of the night. Will you marry me? I was drifting in the sea, completely unaware that Ethan had received the news. He abandoned his wedding, leaving Sophia behind, and was rushing madly towards me. But when he arrived, all he found was a cabin floor covered in blood and my torn clothes. He walked to the bed in a daze, picked up a large chunk of hair still attached to some skin, and suddenly broke down in tears.
Ava. Ava. I regret it. I shouldn't have sold you. It's my fault. I shouldn't have said I wanted to marry you. If I hadn't said anything, could I have just watched you from afar like before?
Ethan was truly remorseful now. He wished he could join me in the afterlife. But what good is despair and sorrow?
At that time, I wanted to kill everyone and then jump into the sea to join you.
I had thrown myself into the sea, and my body was never found. Ethan had people search the sea for a month, but they found nothing. He was completely broken, only able to have people search again and again. Sophia came to see him many times, saying many comforting words, but he sat on the rocks by the shore, unresponsive. Their wedding never took place. Sophia had threatened Ethan with my background, forcing him to be with her, or she would harm me. The Dùan Mù family would never allow an illegitimate daughter of a courtesan to exist in this world. They would find every way to eliminate me. To protect my life, Ethan had no choice but to agree to marry Sophia. But he never expected that Sophia would still break her promise. She hated me for stealing Ethan's heart and secretly contacted Tony.
Ava, you're always so stubborn. I told you before you'd suffer for it. When I find you again, please don't be so stubborn, okay?
He refused to believe I had perished in the sea, clinging to hope, searching along the coast for any trace of me. All of this, I knew nothing about at the time. I only knew that when I woke up, I was lying in a strange room. My throat burned painfully, and my entire body was wrapped tightly in bandages, leaving only my face exposed. I knew I had been saved. But perhaps, being saved was not such a pleasant thing for me. The bedroom door suddenly opened. A man with an elegant demeanor appeared before me, standing against the light. His face bore a striking resemblance to Ethan's, causing me a moment of confusion.
You won't perish. How will you repay me?
He scrutinized me with shrewd calculation in his eyes, staring intently at my amber-green eyes, and smiling.
How about selling yourself?
I thought I would never sell myself again in this lifetime. 3 years passed in a flash. Since I woke up, time seemed to fly by. I rarely thought about my past, including Ethan. The man who saved me was not a good person, but he had done me a favor, and I naturally had to repay it.
Lily, it's your turn.
The man's voice sounded behind me. I nodded slightly, allowing him to tie a black ribbon around me. Yes, the old Ava was gone. Now, I was Lily, the most popular performer at Nightingale. I groped my way onto the stage, stood there, and bowed slightly to the audience.
Lily, I love you.
The corners of my mouth lifted slightly, and I felt a bit sentimental. These young people who didn't understand love could say they loved someone so casually. In a place like this, love was such a cheap and false thing. It was better to give me more tips. The man who saved me gave me 3 years to hone my dance skills. At that time, I hated Ethan so much that I was driven to madness. Learning something to temper my mind was a rare opportunity, so I put in a lot of effort to learn. Now, I have achieved some success. That man, Brandon, had quite the knack for business. He only allowed me to dance 3 times a year. Each performance was worth a fortune. After each dance, the applause was thunderous, with countless people cheering. Amidst the noisy praises, I faintly heard a familiar voice.
Ava, is that you?
I frowned slightly, tilting my head to listen more closely. Was that Ethan's voice? What was Ethan doing in a place like this? I smirked coldly, raised my head with a smile, lifted my skirt gracefully, and bowed to the audience before heading backstage. Ava, Ethan followed but was stopped by the security guards. I sat calmly in the dressing room, listening to him call my name outside.
Do you know him? The man who saved me, Daniel, leaned against the corner, his sharp gaze fixed on my face. Do you want to see him?
For 3 years, he had spent a lot of effort trying to uncover my past but found nothing useful.
Daniel, I'm tired. He was the man who saved me, and after living with him for 3 years, I had figured out his temperament. You wouldn't want me to be interested in anyone from my past.
Rest then. Daniel nodded immediately, agreeing with my unspoken understanding of his character. If he offers a high enough price, I might consider letting him see you, he said with a smile as he walked out.
I heard him negotiating with Ethan. After a few words, the surroundings quieted down. 3 years had passed. Sophia had probably already given him children by now. A happy family. Only I was left, filled with resentment, destined to be alone. Yes, I hated Ethan. Over the years, I rarely thought of him, but whenever I did, it was always with deep resentment. I hated him for deceiving me, for giving me hope. The physical scars had long healed, leaving no trace, but the wounds in my heart still bled, constantly reminding me of my foolishness. Ethan was not content with not seeing me and kept coming to the Nightingale bar for several days. Daniel treated him as a joke and even told me privately that this man was a fool.
Lily, he said he has taken a liking to you and wants to buy you. Daniel couldn't help but laugh, his tone full of mockery. You're my cash cow now, and he thinks he can buy you for a few $1,000s? How naive.
He's foolish, I said, tying a black ribbon, my face expressionless.
Boss, Mr. Ethan has spent another 100,000. He's spent over $1 million in the past few days, someone suggested to Daniel. Should we let Lily accompany him for a drink? At the Nightingale, anyone who spent over $1 million could request any girl to accompany them, including me. I felt Daniel's gaze on me, as if he was making a decision.
All right, I'll go. I stood up, letting the attendant hold my hand, and smiled lightly. After all, you set the rule.
Daniel wanted to say something, but I shook my head and followed the attendant out. Ethan had booked a private room and was sitting inside, drinking sullenly. When he saw me, he was so shocked that he dropped his glass, which shattered with a crisp sound. I sat on the sofa opposite him, took the drink from the attendant, and toasted him.
Mr. Ethan, Lily appreciates your favor and has come to accompany you for a drink.
I downed the drink in one go and got up to leave. He rushed over and held me tightly in his arms.
Ava, I felt his whole body trembling. Is it really you?
The attendant beside us was stunned by the scene and quickly asked if I needed assistance.
I waved my hand, signaling him to leave. Only Ethan and I remained in the room. He reached out and untied the black silk ribbon covering my eyes, staring into them, frozen in place.
Your eyes. His voice trembled so much he could barely speak. What happened?
My once beautiful amber-green eyes had lost their luster, staring blankly, reflecting nothing.
Ava, what happened to your eyes? His voice rose, filled with anger and pain, urgently questioning me. Who did this to you?
Ethan cupped my face and gently kissed my eyes. His tears fell onto my skin, cold as ice. I furrowed my long eyebrows and lowered my eyelids, indifferent. Now he felt pain? Too late.
It was me. I did it to myself.
I had blinded myself. I hated these eyes, hated the disaster they brought upon me.
Why? Why would you do this? Ethan had no right to question me. What gave him the right? Ava, come with me. Ethan held my hand tightly, speaking earnestly. I don't care about anything else, as long as you come with me.
Hearing him say such things filled me with resentment. Back then, he had also sworn to love me and marry me. And in the end, at his wedding, he sold me to another man. Back then, I was a fool blinded by love. But now, I am not. I let out a cold laugh, turned my face away, and slowly pried his fingers off mine, just as he had once done to me.
Mr. Ethan, I only sing and dance. I don't offer other services.
He stood there, stunned.
That's not what I meant.
Then what do you mean? I laughed, unable to help covering my mouth, chuckling. Mr. Ethan, you can't seriously be interested in Lily, can you? I'm just a lowly woman, not even fit to be your mistress.
Ava! Ethan didn't like my sarcastic tone and immediately got angry. Can you stop being like this?
Stop being like this? He didn't like it? But wasn't it him who said I was dirty and unworthy?
Call me Lily. My face turned cold as I stood up abruptly. We've had our drinks and our talk. It's time for me to go. Feel free to come back and spend more, Mr. Ethan. Lily would be happy to have a few more drinks with you.
Ethan stubbornly held on to me.
I won't let you go again. Ava, do you know I've been looking for you for 3 whole years? This time, I won't let anyone take you away from me.
He spoke with such determination and deep emotion, but my heart didn't stir even a little. No one ever took me away from him. He was the one who didn't want me. He abandoned me. He sold me. Do men always regret their actions? When they have something, they don't cherish it. When they lose it, they come begging.
Ava, let's go. I'll take you somewhere where no one else is. This time, I don't want anything else. I just want you. I just want you, Ava.
I had heard these words once before. He said he only wanted me, only loved me, only wanted to marry me. Ha, what a joke. I had nowhere else to go. Desperation clung to me like a second skin.
I'm not afraid. As long as I can make money.
All right, come to me tomorrow, and I'll arrange a job for you.
Ethan clicked his tongue twice, patting my head.
What do I need to do?
You'll find out tomorrow.
Just like that, with a single meal, I sold myself to this man. The next day, I reported to Flower Dance on time. Ethan found me a server's uniform and had me serve drinks. He treated me like any other employee, but I was not content. The lady was very pleased and said that as long as I served Mr. Thompson well, she would treat me kindly. I was given a place to stay. That night, a stranger pressed me onto the bed. He introduced himself as Mr. Thompson and seemed very satisfied with me, even going out of his way to thank his wife. Mr. Thompson was very fond of me, almost obsessed with my body. Whenever he had a moment, he would drag me into the room. One day, Ethan heard the news from Nightingale and came rushing over to ask Mr. Thompson for me. I was still lying on the bed, my clothes disheveled, exposing large areas of pale skin. He stormed in, yanked Mr. Thompson off me, and wrapped me tightly in his coat. I knew my exposed skin must have been covered in ambiguous marks, otherwise, why would he keep rubbing my delicate arms over and over?
Mr. Thompson, I'm buying her. How much did you pay for her? I'll pay double.
No way. This woman is not for sale.
Triple.
Not for sale.
Quadruple.
I said, not for sale.
Listening to them barter over me like a piece of merchandise filled me with endless sorrow.
She's not exactly a rare beauty. Lila's place has many women better than her. Take your pick.
I only want her.
I smirked inwardly, curious to see what Ethan would do in this stalemate. But I never expected he would abandon his dignity and kneel to beg Mr. Thompson.
Get up. I trembled with rage. This couldn't be the Ethan I knew.
How could Ethan kneel on the ground, begging like a dog?
Ava, I only want you. As long as you come back to me, I'll give up everything.
He was truly mad. I groped my way to him and slapped him hard.
Ethan, who do you think you are? Do you think kneeling will erase everything?
How could anything be so simple and cheap? Who did he think he was? What right did he have?
Ava, I know I hurt you. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. If you want to hit me, go ahead. It doesn't matter.
Making it up? What do I need to be made up for? Does it even matter now?
You're just pathetic. I lost even the desire to hit him, collapsing to the ground in tears. You were the one who abandoned me for Sophia.
If he hadn't abandoned me back then, none of this would have happened.
Ethan, I don't love you anymore. I don't even hate you anymore.
Mr. Thompson came over, lifted me up, and possessively kissed me on the lips. He smiled at Ethan.
Mr. Ethan, it's not that I'm not giving her to you. She doesn't want to go with you.
I didn't know what expression Ethan had now. I only knew my heart ached terribly. Why didn't he love me properly back then? Why is he trying so hard to win me back now? Ethan knelt there, his face pale, lips drained of color. He stared at me, his voice as sorrowful as a flowing river.
Ava, let's not do this, okay?
I didn't want this either. But what choice did I have? I was just a pitiful woman wrapped in resentment, living a life of despair and misfortune. I resolutely refused to leave, and in the end, Ethan could only get up from the ground, despondently walking out of the Thompson residence. The mix of vengeful satisfaction and overwhelming heartache almost made me faint. Ethan must have understood my thoughts by now, as he hadn't appeared in the past few days. Mr. Thompson seemed relatively satisfied with me, occasionally gifting me some interesting trinkets.
Lily, this is a rare find I had someone get for you. With your eyesight gone, having it will make getting around much easier.
He smiled at me, pulling me into his embrace. I let him do as he pleased, listening to his irrelevant chatter. Suddenly, he mentioned Ethan.
Lily, it's a good thing you didn't leave with Mr. Ethan before. He's been busy planning a wedding recently. Seems he's going to marry Sophia from the Dùan Mù family. If you had gone with him, you wouldn't be as free as you are now.
Getting married again? How laughable. When Ethan knelt before me, begging me to reconsider, he didn't mention marrying Sophia. In just a few days, they were back together? I said nothing, just smiled faintly, as if uninterested in his words.
Lily, you're truly heartless. He kissed my forehead. Women like you must be heartless, right?
Women like us. I couldn't help but laugh.
Sir, don't you know? Actresses are unfaithful, and women like me are heartless.
I was a woman like that, never to fall for anyone again. That evening, an unexpected visitor came to the Thompson residence.
Long time no see, sister.
I could feel Sophia's intense gaze, like a branding iron, burning into me.
Why are you still here? Why did you come back?
This was my own sister. My biological sister. Years ago, I even lost an arm because of her.
Miss, you must be mistaken.
Though Daniel had a renowned doctor reattach my right hand, it still ached like being gnawed by ants whenever it rained. At that moment, the joint pain flared up unexpectedly, almost causing me to embarrass myself in front of Sophia. I sat there calmly, laughing heartily.
I'm Lily, the most popular performer at Nightingale. I don't know any wealthy young ladies.
Sister, you still want to deceive me? Ethan has already come looking for you.
So what?
But we're getting married. Sister, you're already like this, you can't be with Ethan. Don't ruin my happiness, okay?
My fingers clenched tightly, almost unable to resist rushing over to slap her hard. She said I ruined her happiness, but who ruined whose happiness? This world allows people to sell smiles, but not to reform?
Sister, I'm begging you.
Sophia knelt before me with a thud, crying her heart out.
I know you mean well for me. Otherwise, 3 years ago, you wouldn't have hurt someone for my sake. I'm begging you one last time, don't entangle with Ethan anymore, okay?
She knelt there, crying so hard it was heart-wrenching.
If you leave, everything will be fine.
If I leave, everything will be fine? But what about my resentment? My revenge? What about the wounds etched into my bones? I sat there, feeling a bit dejected, muttering to myself.
Let me think about it.
Sophia stood up, grabbed a tissue from the table, and wiped her tears. She was extremely grateful.
Sister, I knew you were the best.
After she left, I sat in the room for a long, long time before sighing and packing my things.
I wasn't a good person, I didn't have the noble spirit to sacrifice for others. I just felt that I shouldn't stay here any longer.
During this time, Mr. Thompson's affection for me was evident to Mrs. Thompson. When I proposed leaving, she actually seemed relieved. Daniel returned the money in full and took me back to the Nightingale.
Lily, After all this trouble, you're back with me. Don't leave again.
I couldn't be bothered to respond to him.
I used to think he was a serious and cautious businessman, but after getting to know him, I realized he was just a lucky fool.
Lily, I think Ethan treats you quite well. Why not stay with him?
He suggested with a grin, clearly approving of Ethan. I looked up slowly.
He offered a lot of money, didn't he?
Daniel laughed heartily. I could imagine his face lighting up with excitement.
Of course, he said he'd give me Lila's place.
How could Daniel resist such temptation? Ethan must be out of his mind. He was willing to hand over Lila's place, which he had painstakingly built up.
Daniel, send me away, I pleaded, grabbing his sleeve in a panic, almost in tears. Please, send me away.
That night, Daniel put me on a ship bound for the distant south. As I was about to leave, Daniel hesitated, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just sighed.
I knew what he wanted to say, but I just shook my head, knelt down, and gave him a deep bow. Daniel, thank you.
This thank you felt so weak and powerless, but it was all I could offer him. Daniel might not be a good person, but he had treated me better than most.
I don't want to shorten my life. Daniel quickly helped me up, half jokingly, half seriously. If you can't make it out there, come find me. We'll work together again.
You might as well spend more effort training new people.
After a few more idle words, Daniel reluctantly left. I stood on the deck, feeling my way to my cabin. The ship sailed smoothly, but my heart was filled with anxiety. The last time I jumped into the sea, though I was saved, it left me with an indelible psychological scar. I was afraid of water, especially seawater. Daniel seemed to have found me a private ship. The entire deck was eerily quiet. As I felt my way forward, I stepped on something slippery and fell to the ground. Someone rushed over and helped me up.
I thanked him repeatedly, but he said nothing. He opened my palm and wrote "You're welcome" in it. I realized then that he was mute. His hands trembled, probably out of insecurity, fearing ridicule. But I was blind. I patted his hand and smiled. Don't be afraid. I won't laugh at you. You have your challenges, and I have mine. We can be friends, can't we?
He paused before writing Jack in my palm.
Your name is Jack? Are you a helper here? I asked, surprised at how someone working on a ship would have such a contradictory name.
Jack told me he looked hideous, and I was lucky I couldn't see him, otherwise, I might have run away at the sight.
I chuckled and sat beside him. Sometimes you can't judge people with your eyes. You have to see with your heart.
I could sense that the man beside me was a good person. The sea breeze blew, ruffling my long hair. I reached out to smooth it, unaware that my face was etched deeply in his eyes.
Let me escort you back to your cabin room.
Jack lived next door, telling me to call him if I needed anything.
Thank you, Jack, I said a few more times before closing the door and lying down on the bed.
In the quiet night, only the howling sea wind could be heard outside. Suddenly, I thought of Ethan. Intense longing mixed with unshakable resentment tormented me to the point of despair. Tears rolled down, soaking the pillow.
I'm a coward, I admitted to myself, unable to face the truth of the past, unable to believe that Ethan had always genuinely loved me. All I could do was run to a place where no one knew me.
Daniel had once advised me, saying there might be hidden truths about what happened back then. If Ethan had been forced to give me up due to some unspeakable reason, and now he was looking for me, I should forgive him and have a happy reunion.
But life isn't a melodramatic TV drama. I was never the heroine in it. I had already lost the courage to be with Ethan.
A startled cry rang in my ears. Ava! It sounded just like Ethan's voice. But how could Ethan be here in the vast ocean? I collapsed into Jack's arms, desperately turning my head to look, but all I saw was darkness. I cried out in grief, unable to control myself. Ethan. Ethan.
Ava, don't cry.
The person holding me suddenly spoke, and it was Ethan's voice.
In disbelief, I reached out, touching his face. Impossible, it can't be Ethan.
But the familiar contours, the familiar eyes, even without seeing, I could recognize them by touch. It was Ethan. It was him.
Ethan! It's you! I touched his eyes, which were now brimming with tears.
Ava, it's me. I'm sorry, I couldn't hold back.
He couldn't bear to see me cry, couldn't bear to hear me call his name without any response.
I should have stayed by your side, silent.
I broke free and screamed at him, liar, jerk. Let go of me. He had deceived me before, and now he was deceiving me again.
I won't let go, I just won't.
In anger, I bit down hard on his arm, but he refused to release me.
Ethan, you jerk, I told you I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you.
To avoid him, I had boarded a ship to escape thousands of miles away, but I never imagined he had been following me all along. With a cry, he lifted me and carried me into the cabin room.
What are you doing? He threw me onto the bed, and I scrambled to the corner, my face full of anger. Are you crazy?
Ethan must have gone mad. Otherwise, why would he disregard everything and pounce on me, kissing me wildly? He was mad, but I couldn't go mad with him. I clawed at his lean flesh, pushing him away with all my strength.
I'm tainted, so tainted. How many people had slept with this body?
Ava, I love you. I don't care about anything else. I don't want anything else. I just want you.
Ethan kissed my cheeks and behind my ears, confessing with deep emotion.
Don't reject me. I've seen it these past days, you love me.
He spoke with certainty, leaving no room for doubt. He followed me onto the boat. Perhaps this boat even belonged to him. He became Jack, staying by my side day and night, watching me grieve deeply for a man named Ethan. All my affection for him was laid bare before his eyes. I was a fool.
Ethan, you jerk. Is it fun to toy with me?
From the beginning until now, he had always played me like a puppet.
Don't cry, silly.
He kissed away my tears one by one with his lips. My emotions had somewhat stabilized, and I quickly grabbed his wandering hand.
Ethan, I'm sick. I have a disease.
Ethan's hand paused, clearly unable to accept this fact.
How is that possible?
Haven't you always known what I do? Someone like me, seeing countless clients every day, catching something isn't surprising, right?
Even though I couldn't see anything, I knew Ethan's face must be grim now. My heart was filled with the pleasure of revenge, and I couldn't help but laugh out loud. But Ethan also chuckled lightly along with me.
What are you laughing at?
He flipped over, pinning me beneath him, his hot breath making my face flush.
Are you sick? I'll stay with you.
Are you out of your mind? Are you looking to get yourself killed?
If you're sick, I'll be with you. If you die, I'll die with you. In life and death, we'll be together.
3 years ago, I had no choice but to let you go. For the past 3 years, every day has been a living hell for me.
Ava, this time, even if it means death, I won't let go of your hand again.
I couldn't control myself and burst into tears, crying incoherently.
Jerk, idiot, fool.
I was far from perfect, even filthy. How could someone like me bear Ethan's deep affection? The next day, when I woke up, I was still nestled in Ethan's arms. He was playing with a strand of my hair, tickling my face, making me giggle.
Stop it.
This scene was just like the time 7 years ago when we were passionately in love. I didn't know Ethan was so afraid this was all a dream that he didn't dare to sleep all night, forcing his eyes open to watch me quietly. His eyes were bloodshot with exhaustion, his voice hoarse.
Good morning, Ava.
Ethan kissed my forehead, carefully and considerately helping me get dressed, then took me to a breakfast and enjoy the sea breeze. We tacitly avoided discussing any future plans, just enjoying each other's company in a close and leisurely manner. The past seemed to be wiped clean.
Ava, in a couple of days, this boat will dock to resupply.
Ethan told me that the next city we would dock at was a famous flower city in the south. Only now did I realize how far we had come.
Ava, there are vast fields of flowers there, blooming all year round with various colors, their fragrance intoxicating.